this structure was built by this fellow named Michael Daly, who that's what he did. He did these projects. He came to us early on, and again, this was all a big industrial area. Not a real long time ago. This was all lumber yard.
I remember the lumber yard.
Right? All lumber yard. There's an aerial view here. I'll pass it around. This is a picture of the original bridge, okay? Taken from an airplane up there. And so this site is right here. And what do you see? This is all oil tanks and refineries facilities that was brought in. This was a navigable waterway, which it isn't anymore because all of the silt has come down now from Hempstead Harbor. There used to be tall ships that came in here, and this was a major port. So part of the agreement here, in order for him to build this thing much bigger than what it really would have been allowed by code, he was required to come in and do a multi-million-dollar site environmental cleanup. And I remember coming, I was like telling the story, I was down here myself, wandering around alone, and I was standing on top of this, I came upon this metal thing. It looked like it was enormous. It looked like I was standing on top of a submarine, you know, just the very top of it, and it just disappeared into the ground. I can't imagine what must have been underneath. And you could smell oil, and there was this gantry. It was a gigantic cleanup. And then Mike Daly hired this Robert A.M. Stern to design the place. Guy Ladd Frost, who's another local architect, and I, who were very involved with all of these things, we said, you know, maybe we're in a modern period, maybe it could be a little more modern rather than so traditional. And Mike said, no, Craig, when people are moving out of their houses and coming into a facility like this, they want it to look very residential. And they just love this idea of that porte cochere and colonnade. Anyway, so that's an important building here. But what I love talking about is this bridge. You know, we take the stance here in Roslyn. We have so many important buildings, and not only buildings, but structures here. I would have loved for them to have restored that old bridge because it was really very nice to look at. It was metal. But unfortunately, that bridge had this what they call a pin hanger design, which was flawed. And some of you may remember back in 1983, there was another sister bridge of this one in Connecticut, the Mianus River Bridge, and literally this gigantic section in the middle of the night fell into the drink. So I'm going to pass this around. You probably can't see it very well. This patina green color here, this is the old bridge. And this is the old stanchions that held it up. And what they did is they had these wings sticking out, steel wings, and they cut them off on both sides. Because what did they have to do when they built this bridge? That you had to maintain the roadway. The original bridge was 1950. You're talking about 50 years later now. You think the traffic is less? The traffic is more. This bridge handles a tremendous amount of traffic every day. So what they did is they cut these wings off. They reduced it down to 3 lanes, and they literally had to keep 2 lanes open westbound in the morning. So they literally were moving these cones around every day so that there was 2 lanes in the morning going westbound, and in the afternoon when people were going home, there was 2 lanes going the other way. And then they literally built this bridge alongside of it. And then finally, when they were completed with this bridge, then they just tore the other one down. But they had, the way that they built it is they first made these piers, and then they would just put this one section in. You'll see it when you look carefully. This is one little section, and these are what's known as precast concrete pieces. They were all floated down here on barges, and then trucked into these locations. And then they had this gigantic, I mean, it's just hard to imagine. See the size of this, when you look at the picture, see the size of this machinery. The thing was, I mean, you're standing here, it was as big as standing here and going up and higher. This gigantic framework that had these pulleys here. So they'd literally pull a truck up, and you see all these joints? All of those is one section, and they would literally hoist that section in one piece at a time. And then they put this whole thing together, and inside of it, you'll see some pictures here also, there's these gigantic cables then that they tighten up at the very end to just hold the whole thing in place. The projected lifespan of this bridge is 75 years. And oddly enough, the name of the bridge today is the William Cullen Bryant Viaduct. For years it's been called just the Roslyn Viaduct. And why is it called Viaduct? I have no idea. So what we're going to talk about next, we're going to walk down to the water here, and we're going to experience this waterway that I was talking about. Because, you know, one of the virtues of these projects is not only that there was an environmental cleanup, but what did they do? They also had to build a bulkhead and a boardwalk, as did this project. So this project called the Roslyn Landing, this is the one where the Stop and Shop was supposed to be built, didn't get built, but as part of their incentive bonuses and monies that they gave, they had built this wonderful promenade that we're going to walk along now. I like to talk just for a minute about this building over here. It's owned by a couple of local guys, and we have a couple of local people here that own an awful lot of buildings. And these, in fact, our co-president of the Roslyn Landmark Society, Howard Kroplik, is half owner of it with another local colorful guy, Ian Zwerdling. And this building is still known as the Coin Mac building. Why is it called Coin Mac? Because the guy that built the building was a real entrepreneur. I don't remember what his name is, but what he did is he didn't manufacture, but he bought and he put these coin-operated washer and dryer machines in all of these buildings throughout Queens and the boroughs. And the piece to the right is the administrative part. That first garage door at the see, what they had to do is they would send trucks out, and that they would collect all of these quarters from the machines, and they come back with an armored car, drive into that. That's actually a new door. It's made of glass. Originally, it was a metal door, because these guys now, it's no longer used for that purpose. There's a gigantic, or not a gigantic, but there's a vault inside the building that's still there. And that's where all the coins were put. But now both of these guys are car enthusiasts, and if you look through, I guess you can't see it because of the reflection, but Howard is such a crazy guy. I remember when he bought it, he actually has a Tucker that's fully restored. He wasn't going to restore it, then he did. But then the piece to the left, that is the workshop and the storage area for all the machinery that he would ship all over the place, because he'd literally put the machines in the buildings and collect the money. And then there on the other side, there was a bunch of loading docks. But what these guys have done, they've turned this building now, and Ian especially is known for this. He'll buy these buildings like this that once had this use, and then he uses it as a multi-use building. He's got office space on the second floor, and then he's broken the whole thing up with a gym and a dance studio and a guitar shop. The other side of the street is that's Lumber Road. Why? We're all lumber yards here, both sides. And that building that's being built is going to be a luxury apartment building. Lumber Road, more recently than the original master plan, was rezoned because this was all industrial, which is why the Coin Mac building was there. And this site was a site that was owned by Verizon. And believe it or not, they had like hundreds of trucks here, or however many they can fit on that site. And every day you had all these Verizon trucks scooting all over the place. In the morning, they all go out. At the end of the day, they all come back. But it was awful to look at. So again, with this incentive bonus to come in, develop waterfront, they were able to construct these these residential high density projects. So this was the first one of these developments, and this is very recent, this brick building here. You know, it's very hard when you're doing a new building in a historic district, because what do? You know, does it look like a, you know, the historians say, you know, you don't want to make these reproduction buildings. They're really false work. Buildings should really, the words that they use is that you don't want to fool the historians. You know, in other words, 100 years from now, when someone's analyzing that building, you want them to be able to say, well, that building was built in 2000. You don't want to try to make them think it was built in 1900, you know? But at the same time, you have context and you want the building to fit in. So this is the solution that they came up with. This was that first one where you got the incentive bonus, and they built that whole boardwalk there that wasn't there before. Now this building was an old wood structure, and we really wanted them to keep it. But you know, when I went in there again myself and looked at it carefully, and they said, Craig, we really can't keep this building. It's not going to work for us. You know, in today's world, people don't want to build wooden buildings on this scale anymore. They're not fireproof. The reason why those buildings are not around is because ultimately they burn down. But there was just so many columns in the space, it just didn't make sense. So we said, all right, you know what? I really tossed and turned on this one. They said, we'll reproduce the building in a modern building, but we'll make it exactly the same dimensions. Exactly. So, all right. So they built it to my chagrin. But you know, years later now, I look at this building and I say to myself, you know, when I do a walking tour like this, I can look at it and say, that's really a vestige of the old lumber yard on Lumber Road. And you know, there's it's a symbol.